Welcome back to Session 7 of Business by Design. Last week, we had a long conversation about using the most important multi-channel marketing approach to build your business, to build your brand, and to promote your listings. Today, we're going to talk about how to win every listing appointment you go on. And these two shows are very connected. So my hope is that you took massive action last week and did all of the assignments we discussed. So now let's transition and talk about how do we win every listing. I'm curious, has there ever been a time when you really wanted a listing and you lost it? Maybe it was to another agent, or worse, the seller took all your information and decided to sell on their own. Has that ever happened to you before? Most experienced agents will say, of course it has, and we know that it's a painful experience to lose. One of my great mentors would say to me all the time, Tom, in life, everyone loses. When you lose, don't lose the lesson. Don't lose the lesson. Our goal today is to learn from those experiences and create a better mousetrap that enables you to win the vast majority of every appointment you go on moving forward. So to do that, we need to work on 3 different parts of your listing strategy. Number 1 is your pre-appointment plan. What you do before the appointment to sell yourself before you get there. Number 2 is your actual listing presentation there at the home. And number 3, when necessary, your post-appointment follow-up plan to separate yourself from the competition and ultimately win. So first, we want to qualify every seller before we actually go to their home and implement the first step. Here are the most important questions you should be asking every potential seller before you book the appointment. Number 1, we want to know, how long have you owned this home? That's important because it gives us some history and how much perhaps emotional attachment they have to the property. Number 2, when the property sells, where are you moving to? Now, what if you ask that question and they say, I don't know? You don't ask the third question, you say, well, let's explore that. When you list your home with me, my track record says I'm going to sell the property quickly at the highest possible price, putting you in a position to take that money and go someplace else. If you had to decide, where would you move to? Sometimes people will say, I don't know, because they don't want to give up their real motivation. They're afraid to tell you what really is driving them. So you don't just take that I don't know and shuffle it away and ask the next question. Instead, you dig a little deeper and you explore. When you connect with them here and here, they open up and tell you everything, allowing you to help them achieve their goal. Question number 3, we want to ask a value-based question. It goes like this. What's important to you about moving to that location? It's important when you ask a question like, what's important to you about X? They're going to talk about their values, what's important to them. So you say, what's important to you about moving to city X? And they say, we've always dreamed of living there. My parents are there. I'm originally from there. It's a job opportunity for me to make more money. It's retirement. Whatever their motivation is, they're expressing it in their values. It's important that you listen and use that information when you meet with them to remind them why getting their home sold and listing with you helps them experience that value. Question number 4, how soon would you like to be there? Pretty obvious question. And again, the more trust we've established, the more rapport we've created, the more they're going to tell us the truth. We need to be there in 90 days. Or they're going to say, we don't really have a time frame, but we'd like to do it. We believe that now is the time to sell our home, but we're in no rush. We've all heard that before, which is why we ask question number 5. What's your plan B if this doesn't work out? Plan B is always in the back of every seller's mind. If it doesn't sell, maybe we'll rent it. If it doesn't sell, maybe, Uncle Frank will move in, right? And he'll use the place. The challenge is when a seller has a plan B as a valid option, more than likely, they're going to want to list the property at a really high price because they've got a solution, a fallback. So as you're asking this question, what we want to hear is, there's no plan B, we have to sell. When you hear that, you know you've got an extremely motivated seller on the phone, and that's a good thing. Question number 6. We're going to ask another question that's value-oriented. What's important to you in terms of selling this property? What's important to you in terms of selling this property? They may say to you, well, what's important to me is the highest possible price, the fastest amount of time possible, with the highest net proceeds. These are things that people say all the time. What you want to be listening for is, what is their expectation? You see, sales is the ability to ask questions that naturally and automatically lead you and the customer to a mutually desired end result. In this case, it's meeting their expectations. So this is an important question, and it's going to give you a lot of insight into how that person thinks and what they believe, allowing you to customize your presentation to match their needs and win the business. Question 7. What do you expect from the agent you choose to sell your home? What do you expect from the agent you choose to sell your home? What a great question to ask. Now they're going to say, well, we expect great marketing. We expect lots of communication. They might say, we want you to do it at 0 fees or cost. It doesn't matter what they say. I want to hear, what are their potential objections and concerns before I arrive, so I can either incorporate the answers into my presentation, or at least be prepared for when I ask them to sign, I know the objections I'm going to get. Pre-qualifying, my friend, is one of the most important skills of high-producing, great real estate professionals, because we want to put ourselves in a position where we know all the variables, all the things that could happen, so we show up prepared and ready to serve. Make sense? Question number 8. Who else will be involved at the meeting, or who else is involved in getting the home sold? This is a great question because we might find out that the seller actually has another person that owns part of the property. And if they're not there and you ask the person to sign, now they have a condition. Someone else needs to be found to get more paperwork signed to get it sold, or worse, this person now needs to convince that person versus you, the great salesperson, doing your job. So it's important that all the decision makers are present when you're making your presentation. Number 9, you'll say to them, I'll be sending over some information for you to review before our meeting. Will you promise me to review it? And again, I'm asking for a promise that I'm going to deliver my pre-sale package. I want them to take the time to review it so they can get to know me and the services I provide and how I'm going to get the job done. Really important. Then your last question is, do you have any other questions before I arrive? Now, If they give you any objections in the moment, what fees do you charge? How many homes have you sold? Whatever it is, just say, thank you so much. These are all answers that I'll be sharing during our time together, and I appreciate you sharing it all with me today. So if there isn't anything else, I'm gonna let you go, and when I see you Tuesday at 4, I'm gonna have everything prepared for you. It's a great thing to do. You should never go on appointment without first pre-qualifying. And by asking these questions, what happens? We know their motivation, we know their timing, we know their values, or what we would call their selling criteria, including what they expect from you. With this information, you're going to customize your presentation to meet their needs, and this is how you win all the time. The next step is that pre-appointment plan. Think about it like this. 2 agents from your company go on a listing appointment. One just shows up. The other has a package that is either emailed or delivered with some very specific information designed to empower the customer to choose that agent. I'm just curious. One just shows up, one puts together all this information and delivers it. Which agent stands out in the mind of the customer? We both know the answer. So the first part of winning the listing is to develop your pre-sale package, either in a physical package that you would mail them or an email with all the links to everything you want them to see. Number 1, a cover letter, thanking them for the opportunity to discuss the sale of their property. You can use language like, I know you have lots of opportunities and lots of options in the marketplace, and I appreciate the fact you're taking the time to meet with me to ultimately get your home sold. And in the letter, I would say, please review all of the information below. My hope is that this information will answer many of the questions you have, as all of my previous clients have had right before they chose me to list and sell their home. I look forward to seeing you Tuesday at 4, and you sign. The second thing you're going to want to include, now this is where it gets fun, is a Google map that shows all of the properties you or your company has sold in the area. This is a visual track record of you or your company's success, and a key to winning the listing because it shows you and your company's ability to sell homes. How do you do this? If you've ever looked at Google Maps, and by the way, if you don't know, you just go to Google and say, how do I build a map? Google will say, the first thing you want to do is upload all of the addresses that you want to have be identified on the map. So imagine if you've sold 15 properties. On an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Doc, you upload into Google Maps, hit enter, and guess what happens? You've seen it before. A map shows up with all those red bubbles. Those red bubbles are representative of your transactions. When a customer sees it on a map, it becomes real. Many agents in the past have done this same tactic in the form of a Word doc. Here's all the addresses of all the properties I've shown. What we know today, based upon direct response marketing, sales, and influence, is maps are visual. I can read all the addresses, but when I see it in my district, when I see it in my city, and I see all those bubbles, it pops for me as a consumer, and I get empowered to choose you. So I spent a little time on this one, and it's important that you get that done, whether it's your transactions or your company's. Very important. Number 3, you want to have a list of testimonials or reviews from clients that are singing your praises. If you can do that, it's going to influence the person that's reading it, because we all understand the power of a third-party testimonial. Many of my clients today are taking that one step further by asking those same customers that would share your success and why they chose you, and they're actually doing it on video. Now imagine 2 agents send client reviews. One is in written form and one is 5 links to videos that I can watch of customers saying, I chose him, I chose her, we had lots of options, she was amazing, her communication, her ability to negotiate, his ability to market the home was extraordinary, we're very happy. You and I both know the power of video could be the one thing you do that causes them to choose you over any other agent. So it's an important step for you to take. Whether it's in written or video, you gotta get it done. Number 4 is your marketing proposal. Now, notice I called it a proposal, not a plan. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm proposing we do this marketing for you. It makes it feel more custom versus just, here's the thing we always do. That subtle little difference in your language could be the difference that makes the difference that causes them to choose you. Remember, they're hiring you to market their home. So you want to make this as impressive as possible. The more you can showcase your local and global marketing prowess, the better. Consider the following. The average real estate professional has a marketing action plan that has 11 items on it. So here's the 11 things we do to expose the house. Contrast that to many of our top clients who have a list of as many as 70 different things they do to attract a potential buyer. If you were to create a side-by-side comparison, here's what typical agents do, and here's all the things we do. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, when you're considering who you want to list your home with, you have a choice. Someone that does a few or someone that does a lot. That simple law of contrast is going to separate the competition away from you and make you the obvious choice. Now, you can take that marketing proposal, and it could be, again, in text, but by adding some photos, adding some life, adding some color, adding, for example, the Instagram logo and maybe a photo of a house, we're gonna take your home when we list it and showcase it on Instagram and boost it out. Here's the video we're going to do on YouTube of your property, and we're gonna get that exposed to all the people, and you really build up the marketing proposal. Listen to me. When you do this, you're going to win. So if you're scratching your head right now and saying, how am I, if you're sitting with a bunch of you inside the office, work on this together. It's that important. Number 5, you want to include a list of homes that are currently for sale, their competition, in the area. And of course, in your pre-sale package, a list of any recent sales that could help them best determine the value of their property. Number 6, you want to include all additional information about your company that would help them experience the differences and advantages that you and I both know you have. And lastly, number 7, include a photo of you and the people you work with, letting them know who your manager is, your broker, your fellow agents, the office assistant, the marketing person, and more. By doing this, You're letting them know that you cooperate with these other amazing people, and that's another one of the advantages of listing their home with you. Okay, that was a lot. You now have some homework to do. You need to put all of that together, either in an emailable form or in a printable package that you can mail or deliver before your appointment. And you're going to do this every time you book an appointment with a potential seller. You're going to send this out 2-3 days before the appointment. Now, a simple little tip. The day before your appointment, you should call and confirm the time of your meeting, of course, and ask, what did they think about the information you sent over? You're going to immediately get feedback and learn more about what's important or not important to that client. The next major step is the actual presentation. Here's 3 success strategies you should implement before you get to the house. Number 1, know the community and the homes that are on the market and what sold recently. You always want to be the most knowledgeable agent you can be and never be caught off guard by the seller saying, did you see the one down the street? They just sold. That would be bad for you and it removes your credibility. So you always want to know what's happening before you get there. Number 2, show up looking great, dressed for success. I'm old school. I believe you should always be the best dressed person that shows up to win their business. Look your best, act your best, and you're gonna win. Number 3, the blinding flash of the obvious, show up early. No one chooses the late agent. You want to be early and at the minimum, be on time. Now, let's talk about your actual presentation. As you know, you're very lucky, as your company has a beautiful set of presentation materials. And I highly recommend you use what your company provides. Now, rather than going through everything on your internal market center, word for word, let's review the 5 key elements of a great listing presentation. So as you review all the company materials, you're going to pull the most important pieces for you that match your customer's criteria inside the 5 elements. So here's the actual presentation. The first step is previewing the home while confirming the client's motivation to sell. So I say, would you show me the house? And they say, of course. And while you're walking through the house, you're reaffirming, so you guys are moving to X. How soon did you want to be there again? And did you guys have a plan B? I know when we discussed it over the phone, there was no plan B. I want to just reaffirm and get them present to everything we discussed while I'm seeing the home. Now, some agents will say, Tom, I actually prefer to see the home alone to get a sense of it the way a buyer would. I understand that approach. I like the rapport building time of saying, show me the house. Walk me through what you believe are the most important features. Remember, they have some pride of ownership. And if you suppress that, you're disconnecting from them and not engaging them as the agent of choice. So that's the first step. The second step, I recommend you go right into your marketing proposal. I always recommend, by the way, the following language. You say to them, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, many agents like to jump right to price and how much your home is worth. In my experience, I could line up tens, if not hundreds of agents out your door, and they're all going to tell you a very similar price. That's the easiest part. My clients, though, hire me to market and expose their home to the largest number of potential clients, helping them maximize the sale of their home. So before we talk about your home's price, let's make sure you and I are aligned on the importance of marketing and my proposal. Sound good? And of course, they're going to nod and say yes. Then you take the time to wow them with your marketing proposal. Imagine you say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, remember in the email I sent you? The average agent does 11 things to try and sell a home. And as we know, here in our town, only X percentage of homes that are listed ever sell. By contrast, we have 73 things we do to expose your property, and we sell a higher percentage of every home we list. I think we can both agree who you list your home with absolutely matters, and marketing is the degree of separation. And as you're going through your marketing proposal, I'm going to do a video. Can you see the advantage? I'm going to send out this postcard. Can you see how this postcard is going to drive them back to my website, where I'm going to capture that customer who's interested and then follow up on them to see if they want to buy your home. You can actually take the time to explain your multi-channel marketing approach and how you understand the importance of things like Google Analytics and Bitly and all of these different platforms, so they see that you are the most relevant, great marketing agent available. And guess what, my friends? In that situation, you're going to win. So once you've gone through, here's all the things we're going to do. As they agree and as you finish, you can close with, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, are you convinced that I will market your home better than any other agent in town? And I'm nodding yes. And when they say yes, when they are wowed by the contrast of the average agent versus all the things you do, in that moment when they say yes, you just won the listing. The next step is pricing. Now, I recommend offering a 3-option pricing model rather than what the average agent does, which is simply shares one price. Think about it. Here's the language you want to use. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, most agents recommend one price. My clients like to have options. I actually am going to recommend tonight 3 different prices. Number 1, we can price your home at the highest possible point because we believe the home is so unique and so special. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this approach can take considerably longer to sell the home, but it is an option. Number 2, we price it right at fair market value, and we sell the home in a more reasonable time period. And by the way, this is what most of my clients prefer to do. Or number 3, we actually price it below fair market value and create a bidding war on your property. Now, that's the dialogue. As you're thinking about how you might incorporate that, I've had clients around the world say to me, Tom, by walking in with a pricing model of 3 different options, it gives the seller this relief, because what you and I both know is every seller wants the highest possible price. And yet, you and I also know when they choose that highest price, in many cases, the home actually sells for dramatically less. And yet, when you look at the bidding war that can be created by pricing it lower than fair market value, sellers generally end up selling for more than fair market value. I want you to think about a time in your life when this played out. I want you to look at your own market and ask yourself, has there ever been a home that sold with multiple offers because the agent priced it in your mind too low and the home was then bid up in terms of price? At the end of the day, Whether you choose to say, here's the price, or here's 3 options, what I want is to make sure you've got the flexibility to win the listing and never lose because another agent said they'd list it at a higher price. Does that make sense? Now, when you do that 3 pricing strategy, what do you finish with? You look the clients in the eye and say, which pricing strategy makes the most sense for you? And then you have a great conversation about the 3 different options. What we know is the more stories and case studies you can articulate to the client about the pricing models, the better. Here's a time, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, when we listed it really high, and guess what happened? The property wasn't unique enough. There were many other homes they were competing against, and they did sell, but it took almost a year, and they ended up selling for dramatically less. Here's an example, here's an example. Here's a bunch of examples where they listed it at the right price, fair market value, sold in a reasonable time period, and they were very happy. And here's a few case studies where they decided to price it below. I turned on all of my marketing, and they ended up getting multiple offers, and we bid the price up. Which is better for you? It's a very powerful strategy. And again, we never want to lose a listing because another agent said they'd do it at a higher price. Now, once you gain agreement on price, you present the cost associated to sell their home and expected net that they're going to receive after the sale and the fees. You may have to do some basic objection handling here. Make sure you review the workbook for a few easy ways to handle the most obvious objections. Listen, I've been doing this for nearly 30 years. It's not a new objection to hear things like, another agent said they'd do it for a smaller fee. At this point, whether you're a brand new agent or a 30-year veteran, by simply taking the time to practice and rehearse these basic objection handlers, you're going to win. If you want to see more of it live, go to my YouTube channel and search in objections, and you'll see tons of live examples hearing us say these basic objection handlers to win the clients and get the yes. Now, the last step is you ask for the business and complete the paperwork. It shouldn't shock you to hear that in sales, the vast majority of people fail, as I mentioned in session 1 and session 2, and they fail for a large variety of reasons. One of the obvious reasons we haven't mentioned is their fear of asking for the order. They're afraid to say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, are you as convinced as I am that I'm the right agent to market and sell your home? And when they nod yes, you say, great, let's go to the paperwork. You've got to become comfortable with the ask. You've got to become comfortable closing for the sale. The only way you can do that is to practice. That's right, practice. I want you to practice your listing presentation several times before you present to an actual customer. Think about it. I believe, again, one of the biggest reasons agents fail is they don't know what to say, so they practice on their clients. Could you imagine, just for a moment, giving a child a scooter or a car and simply handing them the keys and saying, go ahead and drive, right? I'll see you in a few hours. Could you imagine doing that? You and I both know that would be disastrous, right? Of course it would. So we would never do that. Instead, you would teach them to drive. Then they would practice driving in a safe area until they became comfortable with those skills so you can then set them free. Well, this simple metaphorical example is exactly why I want you to practice. I don't want you going on listing presentations like a child learning to drive for the first time. I want you showing up, looking, and acting like a professional. And the only way to do that is to practice. Now, the third and last step, if you didn't get the listing signed right there on the spot, here's what I want you to do. Number one, after the presentation, I want you to stand in front of their property and I want you to record a short video on your phone. This is where you're going to thank them for taking the time to meet with you and let them know that you're excited about marketing their home and, most importantly, getting it sold for top dollar. You're going to remind them to, again, review all the information you delivered before the appointment, and that if they have any questions, please don't hesitate to connect with you. Once you record that video, you want to send it right to the customer, keeping you and your presentation and the value you're bringing to the table top of mind, especially if you know they're meeting with another agent. Remember, we never want to lose. So I'm going to do whatever it takes before the appointment, at the appointment, and after the appointment to make sure that you stand out and that you are the obvious choice for them to list with. Okay, as we wrap up this session, you've got some assignments. Number one is I want you to create your pre-sale package. This can evolve over time. Having a few items is better than having nothing. So by simply getting what you already have from your amazing company and/or from the people inside your office or your own resources, put that together and that's the beginning. And over time, it could just get better and better and better. Number two, I want you to review the pre-qualifying the seller script and maybe hang it inside your office and start to practice it so the next time you get an appointment, you know the questions you need to ask to ensure that you're customizing your presentation to their needs. Number three, take the time to review all of your company's listing materials. Look at all of the beautiful marketing assets and information your company already has so you can build into your presentation the 5 steps we discussed and everything your company provides. Number 4, you want to take the time to build your marketing proposal and make sure that you're contrasting it to the other agents. So it could be as simple as, here's what other agents do on one piece, and over here, here's all the things we do to market and sell the home, and you show all the things that you do. In marketing, we call that the law of contrast. I'm contrasting what the average person does versus all the exceptional things you do. And lastly, number 5, I want you to begin practicing your presentation, both presenting your marketing, pricing, and handling objections so you win. And then, once you've done all of that, get out there and never lose another listing. I'm really proud of you. Get to work, do everything we've agreed on, have a powerful week, and I'll see you on the next session.